I want to start today with a visualization exercise.
Yeah.
And I know usually when people say close your eyes, they're about to try and sell you meditation apps or a timeshare.
Right, a beachfront condo somewhere.
Exactly. But bear with me here. I want you to run a simulation in your head. If you're safely seated, go ahead and close your eyes. If you're driving well, obviously keep them open, which is actually part of the irony we're about to discuss.
It is the central irony, really, the driving part.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Now picture your city, not the postcard version they put on the travel brochures or the Chamber of Commerce website. I want the gritty Tuesday morning reality.
The commute.
Right, the commute. Picture the brake lights stretching for 3 miles on the interstate. Picture the exhaust fumes. Feel that low-level cortisol spiking anxiety of circling the block for 20 minutes, checking your watch, praying for a parking spot to open up so you aren't late for your doctor's appointment.
Oh, yeah, that's the blood pressure spike right there.
Mm.
That daily grind.
It's exhausting. Now reach into your pocket in the simulation, grab your car keys, feel the metal. Now just erase them, delete them from existence. Look back at the street. The traffic jam is gone. The parking meters, gone.
Oof.
Exactly. The noise of engines revving, replaced by just a quiet hum.
It's a powerful image. For a lot of people, that sounds like a utopian fantasy or maybe science fiction. But what you are describing is actually the baseline economic assumption for the stack of reports we have on the desk today.
And that is the part that really grabbed me. We aren't reviewing a sci-fi novel today. We are doing a deep dive into the urban mobility revolution. And to be crystal clear right off the bat, we are not just talking about the next model of electric vehicle.
Right.
We aren't here to debate battery chemistry or the nuances of a LiDAR versus camera.
And that is the tech trap. Everyone gets focused on the gadget. We are looking at the system. We are analyzing the Cybercab, not as a car, but as a piece of infrastructure that fundamentally reorganizes society.
And for you, our listeners who might be eyeing your retirement portfolios or looking at the legacy assets you've held for 30 years, this is the crucial part. We are talking about the concept of the cybercab and the massive societal shifts it triggers.
We really need to define Cybercab the way the source material does, because it's important. We aren't just talking about a Tesla or a Waymo. We are talking about a systemic shift to autonomous electric ride-sharing fleets.
Fleets being the operative word.
Yes, fleets. The key here is that they are projected to become so cheap and so ubiquitous that they render personal car ownership mathematically obsolete.
Mathematically obsolete. That is a heavy phrase. I mean, I felt a little chill when I read that in the report.
It is heavy, but the data projects a rapid rise of these fleets and a corresponding significant decline in personal car ownership by the year 2030.
2030. Depending on when you are listening to this deep dive, that is practically tomorrow. That is within the current business cycle.
It's right around the corner.
If you are holding auto stocks or insurance stocks or even energy stocks in your nest egg, this isn't some someday prediction. This is a right now warning.
Exactly. And that is our mission today. We aren't just geeking out on self-driving cars. We are looking for the ripple effects. Because if you change how people move, you change the value of the land they live on.
The real estate.
Yes, the real estate. You change how retail works. You change the restaurant industry. You fundamentally alter the business blueprints of the entire economy.
So for you tuning in, maybe you're an accredited investor, maybe you're managing your own fixed income portfolio, or maybe you just want to know if you should buy that second car for the grandkids to drive. This is about spotting value shifts.
That's the core of it.
This is about seeing where the capital is going to flow when the asphalt changes.
Precisely. If you are a student of economic history, you know that infrastructure shifts are where fortunes are made and lost. Look at the railroads in the 19th century. Look at the interstate highway system in the 1950s.
The highway system built the modern suburbs, right?
Exactly. And this cybercab revolution is of that exact same magnitude. It's about what the reports call retail reimagined and spotting the new business blueprints before the rest of the market catches on.
Let's unpack this. Let's move into our first chapter, the core shift, from ownership to access.
To really understand this shift, you have to understand the fundamental inefficiency of the current model. And I don't use the word inefficiency lightly here. The modern private automobile is perhaps the most inefficient asset in the history of capitalism.
Okay, that sounds like hyperbole. I mean, I love my car. It represents freedom. It gets me to the golf course. It gets me to see my family.
Does it? Or does it mostly sit in your driveway? Let's look at the utilization rates provided in the research. The average personal vehicle, the one you pay insurance on, maintenance on, and a monthly note on, sits parked for 95% of its life.
95%. So we are paying for a machine, paying for insurance, paying for maintenance, and it's essentially a piece of yard art for 95% of the time.
Exactly. It is a 4,000-pound asset that you utilize 5% of the time. Think about it from an investment standpoint.
Right.
In any other business, if you were running a factory or a logistics company, if you had an asset with 5% utilization, you would be fired. You would liquidate it immediately. It is dead capital.
When you put it that way, it does sound insane, especially for anyone on a fixed income trying to protect their dividend payouts. You wouldn't hold a stock that only performed 5% of the year. But for generations, the car was the ultimate symbol of freedom. It was a rite of passage.
That was the 20th century marketing narrative. But the sources highlight that the Cybercab flips this model completely. We are moving from CapEx to OpEx.
Let's break that down for the listeners who might not be looking at balance sheets every single day.
Sure, capital expenditure, or CapEx, is buying the asset. You buy the car, it is a depreciating liability. The second you drive it off the lot, you lose value.
Thousands of dollars gone instantly.
Poof. Now, operating expenditure, or OpEx, is paying for the service. You pay for mobility only when you need it. The Cybercab model is what the reports call transportation as a service, or TI.
But wait, we have Uber and Lyft now. That's TIS. And frankly, it's too expensive to use for every single trip. If I took an Uber to the grocery store, then to the pharmacy to pick up prescriptions, then to visit my daughter, I'd burn through my fixed income in a week. How does a Cybercab change the math?
That is the crucial question. The cost of ride-sharing today is dominated by one single thing: the human. The driver accounts for roughly 70 to 80% of the cost of the ride.
Ah, the labor costs.
Yes. When you remove the human from the equation and you optimize the vehicle for 247 operation rather than that 5% utilization we talked about, the cost per mile plummets.
How much of a drop are we talking about here? Because it has to be significant to change behavior.
The reports suggest the cost could drop below the cost of operating a personal vehicle. We were talking about pennies per mile. At that point, the economic argument for owning a car completely collapses.
Well,
Why would you spend $40,000 on a machine plus insurance plus gas when you could just subscribe to a fleet for a fraction of the cost?
so it's not just about cool tech. It's about household economics. It's about freeing up cash flow. If you're a senior and you can drop a massive yearly expense like car ownership, that changes your whole retirement budget.
It's always about the economics.
Yeah.
The day in the life described in these reports is fundamentally different. You don't possess a key, you possess an app. You wake up, you summon a vehicle.
And it's just there.
It arrives instantly because the fleet density is optimized by algorithms that know demand patterns better than you know your own schedule.
It's described in the source as effortless on-demand transportation. And I want to touch on something here specifically for our older listeners. The passenger economy implies that your time is freed up, but it also implies a massive upgrade in safety.
That is a massive point. As we age, driving becomes a liability. Night vision fades, reaction times slow down. Giving up the keys is often a traumatic moment because it feels like giving up independence.
It's one of the hardest conversations families have.
Absolutely. But with a Cybercab, you keep the independence without the liability.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about the stress of merging onto the highway or finding a parking spot in the rain or driving at night. You can just go to the early bird dinner and get home safely.
It's the democratization of the chauffeur experience. You reclaim your time. If you spend an hour a day driving, that is roughly 6 work weeks a year, you get back. You can read, you can work, you can rest.
But the ripple effect goes deeper. This isn't just about convenience or cash flow. The sources emphasize massive societal and economic shifts. Why does changing the car change society so drastically?
Well, think about where you live. Why do you live there? Probably because it's within a certain distance to amenities or it has a garage. If transportation becomes cheap, fast, and productive, the geography of where we can live expands.
Right.
But more importantly, it changes the physical structure of our cities, which leads us directly to the real estate implications.
Yes, let's go there. Chapter 2, Real Estate Reimagined. And the source has a very dramatic title for this section, The Death of the Parking Lot.
It sounds dramatic, but again, look at the math. In many American cities, up to 30% of the usable land area is dedicated to parking. Driveways, street parking, multi-story garages, sprawling retail lots.
30%. That is an incredible amount of wasted capital. That's prime real estate sitting there holding up concrete.
We have paved over enormous percentages of our cities just to store these idle machines. If the Cybercab fleet is constantly moving, picking up, dropping off, charging, and going back out, It doesn't need to park. It doesn't need to sleep near you.
So what happens to that space? This is the asset utilization angle. If I'm a property owner or looking at real estate investment trusts, REITs, what happens to all that concrete?
The report highlights two main repurposing avenues. The first is green spaces. We are talking about the transformation of concrete sprawls into urban parks and community areas.
Which, from an investment standpoint, usually drives up the value of the adjacent residential property. I mean, I would much rather own a condo overlooking a beautiful park than a condo overlooking a gray parking deck.
Absolutely. Proximity to green space is a proven value multiplier. If you hold residential real estate near these transition zones, you could see significant appreciation. But the second avenue is the economic shift, micro-fulfillment centers.
Okay, let's break that down. What exactly is a micro-fulfillment center?
Well, as we move toward faster delivery expectations, same-day, one-hour delivery retailers need to move their inventory closer to the customer. They can't ship everything from a giant warehouse 3 states away in the middle of nowhere.
Right, it takes too long.
It's that old parking garage downtown, or that massive empty lot at the dying suburban mall. It gets retrofitted.
So prime real estate converts from passive storage, which is parking, to active logistics.
Exactly. It's a shift to highest and best use. That garage becomes a hive of activity where goods are sorted and dispatched. For the listener looking at trends, this suggests that commercial real estate isn't dying, it's just evolving.
The value is shifting from the storefront to the logistics hub.
Yes, the industrial REITs that focus on these last-mile hubs are the ones positioned to capture that value.
And speaking of storefronts, that transitions us perfectly to Chapter 3, the retail revolution. The source uses the phrase, experience over inventory.
This is a critical distinction for anyone holding retail stocks or commercial REITs focused on shopping centers. The question the source asks is simple. If you don't need a car trunk to haul your goods home and delivery is hyper-efficient via those micro-fulfillment centers we just discussed, why do you go to a store?
Right. I mean, the old model was I drive to the store, I walk the aisles, I put the heavy box in my cart, I pay, I put it in my trunk, I drive home. If the Cybercab and the logistics network handle all the hauling, the store's whole purpose changes.
It becomes about experiential retail. The physical store becomes a destination for discovery, not just a purchase point. You go there to touch the fabric, to see the screen resolution, to ask an expert a question.
So it's like a showroom.
A showroom or a classroom or a social space. The transaction might happen on your phone while you're standing there, and the item is delivered to your house before you even get back.
I can see that appealing to a lot of people. You want to take the grandkids out shopping, you want the experience of trying things on, but you don't want to carry bags around the mall all day.
Exactly. It's the best of both worlds.
The source also mentions pop-up precision. This sounds like it requires a lot of agility from retailers.
It does. It mentions hyper-flexible retail spaces. In a world of fixed leases, 10-year commercial leases, this is a massive disruption. Imagine a store that isn't a permanent fixture. It moves. It changes its inventory based on what they call transient customer flows.
Can you give me a scenario? How does that actually work in practice?
Imagine a high-end apparel brand or a specialized golf equipment manufacturer. They know, based on data, and we will talk about data a lot today, that a massive fleet of Cybercabs is dropping off a specific demographic at a PGA tournament or a senior expo at the convention center.
Okay.
They can deploy a pop-up experience right there,
Right.
specifically curated for that exact crowd.
So the store chases the customer rather than waiting for the customer to find the store.
Exactly. It's data-driven demand.
Mm.
If you are investing in retail, you want to look for companies that are agile enough to do this. The old department store model, anchored to a dying mall that people have to drive to, that is looking very vulnerable. That's classic value trap.
A value trap. That's a term our listeners know well. Something that looks cheap on a PE basis, but is actually on its way to zero because its business model is obsolete.
Exactly. You don't want to be holding the buggy whip factory when the Model T rolls out.
Now let's look at another industry that is getting completely overhauled. Dining. Chapter 4 is dining in the driverless age.
This is where we see a fascinating bifurcation, a complete split. The industry is moving in two distinct directions: efficiency versus experience.
Let's start with efficiency. We've heard the term ghost kitchen over the last few years, but how does the Cybercab accelerate that trend?
Well, the source talks about hyper-localized delivery hubs. If you take the driver out of the delivery equation, the cost of delivery drops significantly.
Because you aren't paying a person to sit in traffic with your food.
Right. Suddenly it makes economic sense to deliver a single coffee or single sandwich without a $5 delivery fee attached.
So your favorite restaurant might not actually have a dining room anymore.
Precisely. It might just be a high-quality kitchen
Yeah.
optimized purely for autonomous delivery. They don't need waiters, they don't need tablecloths, they don't need a massive parking lot in a high-rent district. They just need a loading bay for the cybercabs. This is
Yeah.
the complete industrialization of cooking.
Okay, but I like going out to eat. I mean, my wife and I have our anniversary spots. I don't want to just eat customized meals out of plastic containers in my living room.
Yeah. And that's the other side of the split. Experience. The restaurants that do keep their physical spaces will have to double down on ambiance and social experiences.
Because if I can get great food delivered cheaply and instantly, the only reason I'm actually leaving my house is for the vibe.
Right. It's the community hub model. You're paying for the chef interaction. You're paying for the unique setting, the live music, the atmosphere. The source suggests that mediocre, middle-of-the-road sit-down restaurants, the ones that are neither super convenient nor super experiential, are going to get squeezed out entirely.
That makes a lot of sense. The middle is always the most dangerous place to be in a transition. But there was one more concept in the dining section that really caught my eye. The mobile dining room.
Yes, restaurant on demand. This is where the lines really blur and it gets kind of wild. The source describes service delivered directly to your doorstep, not just a bag of food, but a whole service experience, or even dining inside a moving cybercab.
So I'm commuting home from a meeting or heading to the airport, and the car is essentially a dining car.
Why not? If the vehicle is autonomous, the interior design can be anything. It doesn't need a steering wheel or a dashboard. It can be a lounge. You can enjoy a high-quality hot meal with a table while you travel. It turns dead time in traffic into a premium dining experience.
That brings a whole new meaning to drive-through.
It really does. And again, look at the investment implication here. Who designs these interiors? Who manages the logistics of hot food and moving vehicles? New industries are being born right here.
That's a great point. The picks and shovels of the new mobility gold rush. Let's move to Chapter 5, Recreation Redefined. The source makes a big claim here about the end of the last mile.
This is huge for seniors and families. The last mile problem has always been the barrier to entry for certain activities. Think about a beautiful nature trail that is 5 miles outside the city, but there's no bus stop and parking is an absolute nightmare. Or a niche sports facility that's just too far to drive to comfortably.
The source says this leads to unprecedented access.
It solves the friction. If you can summon a ride that drops you right at the trailhead or the museum entrance, things that were previously too much hassle become easily accessible.
This is a key point for aging in place, isn't it? I mean, for preserving wealth and quality of life in retirement.
It is the holy grail for aging in place.
Yeah.
One of the biggest reasons seniors move to expensive assisted living facilities is transportation. They simply can't safely drive to the doctor, the grocery store, or the community center anymore.
And once you lose that mobility, your world shrinks incredibly fast.
It does. But if the cybercab solves that you can stay in your own home for years longer, that is a massive demographic shift.
That changes the real estate calculation for retirement significantly. If you don't have to sell the family home to move into a facility near a bus line, you keep that equity.
It does. And there's also the concept of walkable districts. This is interesting because it seems almost counterintuitive at first glance. If we have autonomous cars that take us anywhere we want, why do we walk more?
Yeah, explain that, because I was a bit confused by that part of the report.
It's because the transport becomes seamless. You get dropped off at the edge of a district. You explore on foot. You have a glass of wine with dinner. You don't have to worry about finding your car in a dark garage or driving home impaired or tired. It encourages local, walkable entertainment districts.
So the city becomes a series of these walkable islands connected by these autonomous ferries.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And within those islands, we see venue innovation, mobile pop-up concerts, multi-purpose event spaces that change based on who is arriving. Again, flexibility is the key theme across all these sectors.
It sounds vibrant. It sounds like a fun way to live. But I want to pivot now to the practical side. We've talked about the fun stuff, parks, dining, shopping. But for the listener who is running a business or investing in businesses, how do you survive this transition? Chapter 6 is the business blueprint.
This is the investment focus we promised. The rules of the game are completely changing. The first major shift is location strategy.
The old real estate adage. Location, location, location.
It's still true, but the definition of a good location is changing rapidly. It's no longer just about being on the corner of Main and First, because that's where the cars drive by. It's about data-driven location strategy.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning you need to know where the people are going to be, not just where the roads are built. Real-time mobility patterns dictate prime placement. If the data shows that 5,000 people are moving from the business district to the waterfront at 5 p.m. for an event, that's where your business needs to be.
So it's dynamic, it's not static anymore.
And it requires digital integration. The source talks about unifying physical and virtual customer journeys. In a driverless world, the customer is always connected. They're likely on their screen in the car while en route.
So the transition from the app where they might order or browse to the physical store or restaurant must be totally seamless.
Seamless. If there is friction, you lose them. This is where loyalty comes in. The source emphasizes building brand loyalty in a hyper-connected, hyper-convenient ecosystem.
That's the tricky part, right? If switching brands is as easy as tapping a different button on a screen while you're riding in a cybercab, how do you keep customers?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question for investors to figure out. The answer lies in ecosystem integration. If your service is tied into their ride, their delivery, and their daily lifestyle, it's much harder to switch. Think of it like the bundle packages we used to have for cable, but for physical life.
Convenience is the ultimate loyalty program. I like that. It's a bit scary how much they'll know about us, but I like it from an investing standpoint.
It's where the value is moving. Companies that can bundle mobility, dining, and retail into a single frictionless subscription or ecosystem will be the absolute winners. These are the companies with the moat.
And for our investors, the moat is everything. That economic moat is the competitive advantage that protects your dividend and preserves your wealth.
Exactly. You want to own the ecosystem, or at least the companies that are providing essential services to it.
So we've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the decline of the private garage to the rise of the mobile dining room. Let's try to summarize this journey in our outro.
We started with the car itself. It stops being a possession, a CapEx, and becomes a service, an OpEx. That frees up the parking lot, which transforms into green space or logistics hubs. That changes retail from a warehouse holding inventory to an experience holding attention.
Right.
It splits dining into pure efficiency or pure social connection. And it forces businesses to become data-driven and hyper-flexible if they want to survive.
And for you, the listener, whether you are managing a portfolio, planning your retirement, or just trying to figure out where to buy a house in a Sunbelt retirement community, these aren't just tech trends.
No, these are fundamental shifts in where value is created and stored in the economy. It's a massive shift from hard assets like private cars and parking lots to soft assets like access, data, and experience. It's a shift towards ultimate efficiency and asset utilization.
And it's really about quality of life, independence, the ability to move freely and age in place without the burden and danger of operation.
However, I want to leave us with one final thought, a bit of a provocative thought to chew on that isn't totally resolved in the reports.
Go for it. Let's hear it.
We've painted a picture of a very efficient, very optimized world today. But if our cities are redesigned around shared access rather than private ownership, and if our movement is dictated by data efficiency, what happens to the concept of privacy?
Ah, yes. That's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
In a world where every trip, every purchase, every meal, and every destination is part of a seamless digital grid where you are always a passenger in someone else's system, we have to ask, what is the trade-off?
Right.
Is the price of this ultimate convenience a total loss of anonymity?
That is definitely something to mull over. Efficiency is great for the dividend yields, but privacy is precious.
Indeed. It's the next great debate we are going to have to face as a society. But for now, watch the parking lots. That is where the revolution starts.
Well, on that note, we hope this deep dive has given you a new roadmap for looking at the future of our cities and your portfolios.
Keep questioning the infrastructure around you. Look for the shifts.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next deep dive.